If you think you've heard dark stories before, wait until you hear this one. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment if you dare, because what you're about to witness will haunt you long after this video ends. Let's dive in. The call came in at 3:47 a.m. on a freezing February morning in Portland, Oregon. A jogger, running through the industrial district along the Willamette River, had stumbled upon something that would shatter the city's sense of safety forever. Detective Sarah Chen arrived at the scene within minutes, her breath forming clouds in the bitter, cold air. Yellow crime scene tape already cordoned off a section of the riverbank, and the flashing red and blue lights painted grotesque shadows across the concrete. What lay before her was a sight that would haunt her career. A storage container, rusted and abandoned, sat partially submerged in the shallow water. Its door hung open, revealing the interior. Inside were 3 bodies, all young women in their 20s, arranged in an almost ceremonial pattern. Each victim wore identical white dresses, their hands folded peacefully across their chests. But what chilled Detective Chen to her core was the detail that made no sense. Each victim had a playing card placed over their heart. The Queen of Hearts for the first, the Queen of Diamonds for the second, and the Queen of Spades for the third. The victims were identified within hours. Jessica Martinez, 23, a graduate student who disappeared 6 months ago. Emily Parker, 25, a nurse who vanished 4 months prior. And Hannah Brooks, 22, an aspiring artist reported missing just 3 weeks earlier. 3 women, 3 different lives, 3 different disappearances that police had treated as separate cases. Until now. The medical examiner's preliminary report sent shockwaves through the investigation. All 3 women had been kept alive for weeks before their deaths. They showed signs of being held in the same location, fed the same meals, given the same care. Whoever did this wanted them alive, wanted them healthy, wanted them for something specific. The cause of death for all 3 was identical, a single injection of potassium chloride directly into the heart. Quick, clinical, efficient. This wasn't rage. This wasn't passion. This was calculated. Detective Chen assembled her team in the precinct's conference room. On the whiteboard, photographs of the 3 victims stared back at them. "We're looking for someone with medical knowledge," she announced, her voice steady despite the horror of what they discovered. Someone who knew exactly how to keep them alive and exactly how to end them without leaving a struggle. The investigation moved fast. Surveillance footage from areas near each victim's last known location was pulled. Credit card records were examined. Phone records were subpoenaed. And then a pattern emerged. All 3 women had visited the same place in the week before they disappeared, the Riverside Medical Clinic, a small practice in downtown Portland specializing in women's health. The clinic had a staff of 12, including 4 doctors, 3 nurses, and 5 administrative personnel. Everyone was brought in for questioning. Everyone had an alibi. Everyone seemed genuinely shocked by the murders. But Detective Chen's instincts told her the answer was here, somewhere in these walls, hidden in plain sight. It was the janitor, a quiet man named Marcus Webb, who mentioned something odd during his interview. "There's a basement level," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "It's supposed to be storage, but Dr. Brennan keeps it locked. Won't let anyone down there, not even for cleaning. Says it's private research." Dr. James Brennan, 42 years old, graduated top of his class from Johns Hopkins. Married, no children. No criminal record. By all accounts, a respected physician who dedicated his life to helping women. His office was pristine, his credentials impressive, his reputation spotless. Detective Chen obtained a warrant within the hour. The team assembled at the clinic just after dark, the building empty and silent. The basement door was reinforced steel, secured with a digital lock. A locksmith worked for 20 agonizing minutes before the mechanism clicked open. The stairs descended into darkness. Detective Chen's flashlight beam cut through the black, illuminating concrete walls and a narrow corridor. The air smelled wrong, sterile and chemical, like a hospital mixed with something else, something organic and disturbing. At the end of the corridor was another door. This one wasn't locked. Detective Chen pushed it open, and her blood turned to ice. The room beyond was a nightmare made real. Medical equipment lined the walls. 3 hospital beds sat empty, their restraints still attached. And on a desk in the corner sat a deck of playing cards, spread out in a perfect fan. All the queens were missing. But when they opened the locked cabinet in the back corner, what they found changed everything. Inside the cabinet were dozens of photographs, each one more disturbing than the last. But these weren't just pictures of the 3 victims. There were 7 other women, all wearing the same white dresses, all positioned in the same ceremonial manner. 7 women who had never been reported in the news, 7 bodies that had never been found. Detective Chen's hands trembled as she counted them. 10 victims total. The 3 they discovered were just the beginning. Beneath the photographs was a leather-bound journal, its pages filled with meticulous handwriting. Dr. Brennan's handwriting. Detective Chen flipped through the entries, her stomach churning with each word. The journal detailed everything: how he selected his victims, women who came to his clinic seeking help with anxiety and depression; how he gained their trust over multiple appointments; how he used his medical expertise to drug them during routine examinations, then transported them to this hidden basement; how he kept them sedated, controlled, perfect. But the most chilling entries weren't about the murders. They were about his motivation. "They come to me broken," one entry read, "and I make them beautiful. I give them peace they could never find in this cruel world. I am their savior, not their killer." The delusion was complete, the narcissism absolute. In his twisted mind, Dr. James Brennan wasn't a serial killer. He was an artist, a healer, a god deciding who deserved mercy. The manhunt began immediately. Dr. Brennan's home was raided within the hour, but he wasn't there. His car was found abandoned at Portland International Airport, keys still in the ignition. Security footage showed him entering the terminal at 6:15 p.m., just 2 hours before the warrant was executed. He'd known they were coming. Someone had tipped him off. Detective Chen's team worked through the night, following every lead, chasing every shadow. Brennan's bank accounts showed a massive cash withdrawal 3 days prior. $50,000. His passport was missing. Flight manifests were checked for every international departure, but his name appeared nowhere. He'd vanished like smoke. Then, at 4:30 a.m., Chen's phone rang. It was the night supervisor from the medical examiner's office, his voice tight with urgency. "Detective, you need to come down here now. We found something in the toxicology report, something that doesn't make sense." 20 minutes later, Chen stood in the sterile examination room, staring at the report. The potassium chloride that killed the victims had been mixed with a rare pharmaceutical compound, a sedative so specialized that only 5 hospitals in the Pacific Northwest had access to it. The Riverside Medical Clinic wasn't one of them. But Providence General Hospital was, and Dr. Brennan hadn't worked there in over 3 years. He had a partner, Chen said aloud, the realization hitting her like a freight train. Someone currently working at Providence General. Someone with access to restricted medications. The list of hospital personnel was extensive, but Chen's team narrowed it down quickly. Only 12 people had the security clearance to access the pharmaceutical storage. Among them was Dr. Elizabeth Caraway, 40 years old, head of the anesthesiology department. Her employment record was flawless. Her colleagues described her as dedicated, brilliant, and intensely private. She lived alone in a house on the outskirts of the city, rarely socialized, and had no close friends. A deeper background check revealed the connection. Elizabeth Caraway and James Brennan had attended medical school together at Johns Hopkins. They'd been more than classmates. They'd been in a relationship for 2 years before it ended abruptly during their residency. No one knew why they separated, but both had requested transfers to different programs immediately afterward. "We need to bring her in," Chen told her lieutenant.
"Now."
The team arrived at Caraway's house just after dawn. The property sat on 2 acres of wooded land, isolated and quiet. No lights were on inside. Chen approached the front door with 4 officers flanking her, her weapon drawn. She knocked 3 times, announcing their presence. No answer. They breached the door. The interior of the house was immaculate, almost obsessively clean. Everything had its place. Every surface gleamed. The living room held minimal furniture, a single chair, a bookshelf filled with medical texts, and nothing else. No television, no photographs, no personal items of any kind. The search moved to the bedrooms. The first was empty, except for a bed. The second was locked. Chen's heart pounded as another officer forced the door open. Inside was an office, and covering every wall were newspaper clippings about the missing women. Articles about Jessica, Emily, and Hannah were highlighted and annotated. But there were also clippings about 4 other women, women whose cases had gone cold years ago, women whose bodies had never been recovered. On the desk sat a laptop, still powered on. Chen moved closer, her breath catching as she saw what was displayed on the screen. It was a live video feed, grainy but clear enough. The image showed a small, windowless room. And in the center of that room, bound to a chair and gagged, was a woman. She was alive, her eyes wide with terror, struggling against her restraints. The timestamp in the corner of the video read, "Live. Current location unknown." Chun grabbed the laptop, shouting for her tech specialist. "Get this traced now. We need a location." But as the specialist worked frantically, a new message appeared on the screen, typed in real time. "You're too late, Detective Chen. The game is already over. By the time you read this, she'll be with the others. And I'll be free." The video feed went black. The tech specialist's fingers flew across the keyboard, his face illuminated by the glow of multiple screens. "I've got something," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The signal bounced through multiple servers, but the original feed came from a location approximately 40 miles east of Portland. It's an old psychiatric hospital, abandoned since 1987. Riverview State Asylum. Detective Chen didn't wait for backup. She and her team raced toward the location, sirens screaming through the early morning darkness. The asylum loomed ahead, a massive Victorian structure surrounded by overgrown grounds and rusted fencing. The building had been left to decay for decades, its broken windows like hollow eyes staring out at nothing. They entered through the main entrance, weapons drawn, flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. The air inside was thick with mold and rot. Graffiti covered the walls. The floor was littered with debris, broken glass, and remnants of the building's dark past. Chun could hear water dripping somewhere in the distance, each drop echoing through the vast emptiness. "Split up," Chen ordered. 2-person teams. Radio any findings immediately. She moved deeper into the building with Officer Ryan Martinez at her side. They descended a staircase into the basement level where the original patient rooms had been located. The corridor stretched endlessly in both directions, each doorway opening into small, cell-like spaces. Chun checked each room methodically, her heart pounding with every step. Then she heard it, a muffled sound, like someone trying to scream through a gag. It came from the end of the hall. Chun sprinted toward the noise, Martinez close behind. The door was ajar, dim light spilling from within. She kicked it fully open and froze. The woman from the video feed was there, still bound to the chair, alive but barely conscious. But she wasn't alone. Standing behind her, a syringe held to the woman's neck, was Dr. Elizabeth Carraway. Her face was eerily calm, almost peaceful, as if this were just another day at the hospital. "Drop the syringe, Dr. Carraway," Chen commanded, her weapon trained on the woman's center mass. "It's over." Carraway smiled, a sad, distant expression. "Over? Detective, you don't understand. It will never be over. James and I, we created something beautiful. We gave these women purpose. We saved them from their miserable, meaningless lives." "You murdered them," Chen said, her voice steady despite the rage boiling inside her. "You tortured them. You stole their lives." "We gave them peace," Carraway insisted, her grip tightening on the syringe. "Every single one of them came to us broken, drowning in their own despair. We showed them a different way. We showed them perfection." Martinez circled slowly to the left, trying to flank Carraway without triggering a reaction. Chen kept talking, buying time. "Where's Dr. Brennan? Where is he right now?" Carraway's smile widened. "James is exactly where he needs to be. He's completing the final piece of our work. The masterpiece." You see, detective, we always knew this day would come. We planned for it. And when the world finally understands what we've done, they'll see the beauty in it. There's no beauty in murder, Chen said. There's only suffering and death. Then you're not looking closely enough, Caraway replied. She pressed the needle against the victim's skin, drawing a small bead of blood. The woman whimpered, tears streaming down her face. This woman, her name is Claire. She attempted suicide twice before coming to Providence General. She wanted to die, detective. I'm simply granting her wish, but with dignity, with grace. Claire wants to live, Chen said firmly. Look at her eyes. She's fighting. She wants to go home. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Caraway's face. She glanced down at Claire, really looked at her, and saw the desperate plea for life in her eyes. The facade cracked, just for a moment. That moment was all Martinez needed. He lunged forward, grabbing Caraway's wrist and forcing the syringe away from Claire's neck. Caraway screamed, a sound of pure anguish, as the syringe clattered to the floor. Chen moved in, wrestling Caraway to the ground and snapping handcuffs around her wrists. It's over, Chen said again, this time with finality. But even as officers flooded the room and paramedics rushed to help Claire, Chen's phone buzzed with an incoming message. Unknown number. She opened it with trembling fingers. The message contained a single photograph, Dr. James Brennan, standing in what appeared to be an airport terminal somewhere tropical, palm trees visible through the windows behind him. He was smiling at the camera, holding up a playing card, the ace of spades. Below the image was a single line of text. The deck isn't complete yet, detective. See you soon. Chun felt ice flood her veins. She immediately called the FBI, forwarding the image and initiating an international manhunt. But deep down, she knew the truth. Brennan had planned his escape perfectly, had resources and connections they hadn't discovered yet. He could be anywhere in the world by now. The investigation continued for months. Caraway refused to cooperate, sitting in silence during every interrogation, that same peaceful smile on her face. The bodies of 4 additional victims were recovered based on locations found in Brennan's journal, bringing the total confirmed victims to 14. 14 families finally had answers. 14 funerals were held, 14 lives stolen by 2 monsters disguised as healers. Claire survived, though the psychological scars would take years to heal. She testified against Caraway, her voice strong and clear as she described the horror of her captivity. Elizabeth Caraway was convicted on 14 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But Dr. James Brennan remained free, a ghost haunting the edges of the investigation. Interpol added him to their most wanted list. The FBI increased the reward for information leading to his capture. Detective Chen never stopped searching, never stopped following leads, no matter how thin. 3 months after Caraway's conviction, Chen received another message. Another photograph, another location, another playing card. This time, the King of Hearts. The game, it seemed, was far from over. And in a small coastal town in Costa Rica, a new medical clinic opened its doors. The doctor who ran it was charming, educated, beloved by his patients. He specialized in treating women with depression and anxiety. And on his desk, hidden in the bottom drawer, was a deck of playing cards with 1 card missing, the King of Hearts. If this story sent chills down your spine, you're not ready for what comes next. The darkest cases, the most twisted minds, the crimes that changed America forever, they're all waiting. Hit that subscribe button, because this is only number 30. 29 more nightmares to go.